Hey guys, so I've got a new tutorial today, and this is what a few people actually suggested, and I'm going to have two variations to this sort of same tutorial. Now this is going to be creating a simple pause menu, or a pause screen, or whatever you want to think of it, and this is just going to be show you what we're going to be creating. So normally what you could do is run around your scene and do whatever you need to do. But if I press P, we'll get to a pause screen. Obviously you can see that it looks like it's paused, and if I try and move around or look around or anything, I can't actually do anything. And I press P again, we're unpausing the game, and I can move around and do whatever once again. So I'll get straight into it today. What we're first going to need to create is you're going to need to go to Game Object, Create Other, then GUI Texture. And once you've created a GUI texture, it'll bring it up into your scene. Obviously it won't look exactly the same as this, it'll look slightly different. And all I've done is renamed this to Pause GUI. You can name this to whatever you want, but we're just going to need to reference it in the script later on. Now on your Pause GUI, you want to actually add your texture that you may have created. So what I've done is in Photoshop I've created 1920 by 1080 workspace, and then I've just added a gradient square in the background and moved the opacity down and just put a little bit of text over the top. So when we actually overlay that over the screen, it'll look like it's slightly grayed out. So what you could do is then import that in and then put that into your texture slot up here. And then what you want to do is set the pixel inset, the width and the height the same as you've set your Photoshop document. And if you've done the same as me for a standard monitor, for HD monitor, what you need to do is set the pixel X and Y inset to -920 and -540, because it's always half of what you've set the width and height. So it positions it in the center. So what we're initially going to do is start by writing a new JavaScript, and what we're going to call this is pause, and then we'll open up in MonoDevelop. And once that's open, what we're going to do is delete the two functions there, and we'll start by writing private variable pause game as type boolean equal to false. Then we'll write another private variable called show GUI as type boolean equal to false, but mine just auto corrected it for me. Then we're going to start by writing function update, and then two curly brackets below that, and then we'll say pause game is equal to exclamation mark pause game with a semicolon. Then what we'll do is we'll say if pause game is equal to true, then we'll add two curly brackets below. Then we'll actually say time scale is equal to 0. So that just actually stops our game from doing anything and makes everything pause. Then what we'll say is pause game. Then we'll say pause game is equal to true. Then we'll say game object dot find open brackets main camera in quotations main camera, close that up, dot get component open brackets mouse look, close that up, dot enabled equals false. So that means we won't be able to look around anymore. Then we'll say game object dot find open brackets in quotes first person controller, close that up, dot get component open brackets mouse look, close that up, dot enabled equals false again. Then we'll say show GUI is equal to true. Then what I'm going to say is that if pause game is equal to false, then I'll add two curly brackets below, and we'll copy all of this again from this initial function, start of the function should I say, and then I'll just format it a little bit better, and then I'll put timescale is equal to 1, so we're setting it back to normal time. Then we'll say pause game is equal to false, and show GUI is equal to false. Then under here we'll say that if show GUI is equal to true, then we'll add two curly brackets below and say that game object, now this game object is a lowercase g, dot find open brackets in quotes paused GUI like we set for the actual GUI texture dot GUI texture dot enabled equals true, and then under here we'll say else, then 2 curly brackets below, and what we'll do is copy this same line and we'll paste that in, and then we'll say that show GUI is equal to false. One thing I forgot to do in my script just above here is that I forgot to put an input function, an input statement should I say. If input, so within the top of the actual update function, if input dot get key down open brackets, then we'll say P for pause, and then I add 2 curly brackets. So now we need to add a curly bracket right at the end. And one thing I did do wrong here in the if pause is equal to true, we need to make these equal to true so we don't get any problems, because I forgot to change them earlier. So then what we'll do is we'll run the game in Modern Developer. As long as it's attached to your main camera, you can run around, and then if you press P, you'll notice that paused and we can't look around anymore. Press P again, come out of it, and we'll be able to look around again. So as long as that's on your main camera, and you have, I'll go through the script real fast, is that if you press P, it'll change the boolean value of pause game to true, between true and false. If it's true, we'll stop the game and we'll disable the mouse look and we'll show the GUI, whereas if it's false, we'll make sure that we can play the game by making time scale equal to 1 and making sure that we can look around, and then disabling the actual GUI. So that's pretty much it. Fairly basic, fairly straightforward, and I'll have another pause menu coming up in the not too distant future. So thanks very much for watching, and as ever, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Cheers!